Welcome, my scaries. Tonight I have 3 stories that will make you question the comfort of your own home. Imagine lying in bed, settling down in your hotel room, or putting your child to sleep when suddenly you hear it. A faint scratching, a quiet whisper. You tell yourself it's nothing. But these stories, each stranger than the last, prove that not every noise is so harmless. Sit back, relax, and remember. These people thought they were alone, but they were about to find out that they had entered the realm of Mr. Scary Guy. Prepare yourself for a journey beyond the ordinary, into the shadows of your deepest fears. Welcome to the world of Mr. Scary Guy. When my wife Sheila and I bought the Victorian house on the hill, we thought we were stepping into a fairy tale. It had taken years of saving and searching, but we finally had our dream home. High ceilings, vintage crown molding, and more space than we could have ever imagined. It was the perfect place to raise our new daughter, Amelia. The first night, as we unpacked, I felt an odd sensation, a slight prickle on the back of my neck, as if I were being watched. I dismissed it, blaming nerves and the exhaustion of moving. But that night, as I tucked Amelia into her new nursery, I thought I heard something, a faint whisper coming from the far wall. I leaned closer, but the sound stopped. I shook my head and laughed at myself. The house was old, I told myself. Old houses make sounds. The next day passed in a blur of unpacking, dusting, and settling in. That night, as we lay in bed, I heard it again. A soft whisper, just barely audible, like someone muttering from the other side of the wall. It was too quiet to make out words, and when I nudged Sheila awake, the sound stopped.
"What's wrong?"
she murmured, groggy. I thought I heard something in the walls. Like whispering, I said, feeling ridiculous even as I said it. She blinked at me, then chuckled.
"It's an old house, Bob. Probably just creaks or wind getting through the walls. We're bound to hear weird noises."
I nodded, though I didn't feel reassured. I lay awake, listening, but heard nothing else that night. Over the next few days, I threw myself into setting up Amelia's nursery. It was a charming room, with wide bay windows that let in the morning light. I painted the walls a soft lavender, hung up a mobile of stars and moons, and filled the shelves with stuffed animals and children's books. But every time I spent more than a few minutes in there, the strange feeling returned. The sense that I was intruding, as though the room had been waiting for someone else. One night, a week after moving in, I was woken up by Amelia's cries. I hurried to the nursery, half asleep, and reached down to pick her up. As I soothed her, patting her back, I heard it again. The whisper. This time it was clearer, almost like someone was singing a lullaby. I froze, holding Amelia tightly. The sound was faint but unmistakable, drifting from the wall beside her crib. The words were still unintelligible, but the tone was soft, almost soothing. I backed away slowly, watching the wall as though it might burst open. In the dim light from the hallway, I could have sworn I saw a shadow flicker, as if someone were standing just beyond, watching us. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was just tired. But the next morning, as I was rocking Amelia to sleep, I heard a soft, almost rhythmic tapping sound coming from the wall beside her crib. It sounded like someone gently knocking from the other side, and the knocking seemed to increase in intensity with each passing night. I decided not to tell Sheila. She was already stretched thin with her new job, and I didn't want her to think I was being irrational. But as the days passed, my sense of unease grew stronger. It wasn't just the noises. It was the way the nursery seemed colder than the rest of the house, the way shadows clung to the corners, how Amelia seemed restless whenever she was in there. One afternoon, I was dusting along the baseboards when I noticed something odd. Near the crib, a section of the wallpaper seemed raised, as if something were trapped beneath it. My heart pounding, I reached out and pressed my fingers against it. There was definitely something there, a hard, rectangular shape beneath the paper. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and carefully cut around the shape, peeling back the wallpaper to reveal a small wooden panel, barely visible under layers of dust. With trembling hands, I pried the panel open, and behind it was a hollow compartment. Inside lay a crumpled, yellowed piece of paper. I unfolded it, my eyes widening as I read the scrawled handwriting. To whoever finds this, do not stay in this house. She watches, she waits, she wants the child. My skin prickled and I felt the air around me grow colder. I stuffed the note back into the compartment and hurried out of the nursery, my mind racing. What did it mean? Who was she? And what did it mean by the child? I tried to push the thoughts away, convincing myself it was a prank left by the previous owners. But deep down, I knew there was something more to it. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I thought of the note, of the voice, of the way the walls seemed to breathe with an unseen presence. I barely slept, jolting awake at every sound, every creak. Just as dawn was breaking, I heard the whisper again. Clearer than ever, and close enough that I felt the hairs on my arms rise. The voice said,
"Give her to me."
I shot out of bed, running to Amelia's room. She was sleeping soundly, her tiny chest rising and falling peacefully, oblivious to the terror clawing at my heart. I scooped her up and held her close, promising myself that I wouldn't let anything happen to her. The next day, I finally told Sheila everything. The sounds, the note, the feeling of being watched. She tried to reassure me, saying we could call an exterminator or a handyman to check the walls, but she didn't understand. I felt like whatever was in the walls was beyond anything that could be fixed. That evening, as we sat in the living room, we heard a loud crash from the nursery. We raced upstairs, and when we opened the door, my stomach dropped. The crib had been pushed into the middle of the room and the mobile was spinning wildly, though there was no breeze. Sheila moved toward the crib, her face pale, and I saw something that made my blood run cold. There, etched into the wall behind the crib, were deep scratches like claw marks, and above them, written in a dark reddish-brown substance, was a single word: mine. We both stood there speechless, until Amelia started crying from the hallway. We hadn't even realized she was still in my arms, but the sight of her tiny face jolted us back to reality. Without a word, we turned and left the house, driving away as fast as we could. The next day, we returned only to collect our things. I couldn't bring myself to enter the nursery, so Sheila went in alone to pack up Amelia's belongings. When she came back, she was holding a small, dusty box. She handed it to me, her face expressionless. Inside the box was a small, cracked porcelain doll, its eyes wide and lifeless. Wrapped around its neck was a yellowed ribbon, with a tag that read, "To my beloved daughter." My heart pounded as I realized the doll was old, possibly decades old. We left the house that day and never went back. But sometimes, late at night, when Amelia cries in her sleep, I think I can hear it again. The faint, rhythmic tapping, the whispers, as though whatever was in that house had followed us, waiting for its chance to claim what it believed was rightfully hers. I'd always been a fan of old buildings. There's something charming about peeling wallpaper and creaky floors. So, when I found a quaint apartment in a turn-of-the-century brownstone, I thought I'd struck gold. The first few nights went smoothly, but after a week, I started hearing something strange. It was a scratching sound, faint at first, and easy to brush off as the old walls settling. But the noise grew louder over time, transforming into an unmistakable scraping that seemed to follow me around. During the day, it was easy to ignore. At night, however, it was all I could hear. It started at my bedroom wall, a soft scratching, rhythmic, like nails dragging along wood. I'd lie in bed, heart pounding, staring at the wall, too afraid to look but too curious to turn away. One night, I heard the scratching near my headboard. I pressed my ear to the wall, feeling silly but desperate to understand. The noise stopped for a moment, and in the silence I heard a faint, raspy voice.
Let me out.
My heart nearly stopped. I sat up, staring at the wall, expecting... Well, I wasn't sure what I expected, but there was nothing. I chalked it up to fatigue, the way people can hear things in silence. I forced myself to believe it was just the building, old pipes, or the wood shifting. The next night, the scratching returned, and I tried to drown it out with music, then a white noise machine. But still, it continued. At 3 in the morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed a hammer from my toolkit, pulled the bed away, and began to pry open the wall, determined to find the source. The wallpaper tore easily, and beneath the drywall crumbled. After some work, I pulled away a chunk of the wall and stared in disbelief. Nestled within the insulation, partially decayed, was a photograph of a young girl, her face twisted in fear, her hands pressed against her cheeks as if she were screaming. Carved beneath her in shaky, spidery handwriting were the words, "I'll find you." A chill ran through me. I wanted to stop, but something, curiosity or dread, pushed me to keep going. I dug deeper, my hands trembling as I tore away more drywall. And then I saw it. Another photograph, this time of a man. His eyes were wide, his mouth open in a silent scream, and beneath him was carved, "She's coming!" I gasped, stepping back. It felt as though the walls themselves were closing in on me. I couldn't sleep that night, staring at the photographs, my mind spinning with questions. Who were they? Why were they here? Had someone hidden them, or was there something trapped in these walls? The scratching started again, louder this time, echoing from every corner of the room. I tried to block my ears, tried to drown it out, but it was relentless. And then, as if from a distant corner of the room, I heard that voice again, raspy and desperate.
Let me out.
I threw open my bedroom door and fled the apartment, the scratching echoing behind me, filling my mind. I never returned, but sometimes in the dead of night I swear I can still hear it. The scratching, the voice. And I can't help but wonder who or what is trapped in those walls, and why it wants so badly to get out. It was supposed to be a fun weekend, a break from the routine. The hotel was vintage, nestled between quiet hills and boasting old-fashioned charm. It was one of those places where time seems to have stood still, with brass fixtures and ornate furniture. But that first night, as I lay in bed, something strange happened. I was almost asleep when I heard a soft knock from the wall near my headboard. The knock was faint, almost polite, like someone hesitantly trying to get my attention. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was nothing. But then it happened again. I sat up, feeling a prickle of unease. "Hello?" I whispered, feeling foolish. But the knock came again. Louder this time, as if in response. Heart racing, I pressed my ear to the wall. There was silence, but it felt charged, like something was just on the other side, waiting. And then, I heard a soft, dragging whisper.
Are you there?
I jerked back, staring at the wall, half expecting to see something materialize. But nothing happened. I spent the rest of the night on edge, jumping at every sound, every creak, convinced that someone, or something, was behind the wall. The next day, I asked the hotel staff if someone was in the room next to mine. They assured me it was vacant. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to stay. That night, the knocking returned, but it was different, louder, more insistent. It felt as if the knocks were coming from every direction, surrounding me. Desperate, I called out, "Who's there?" The knocking stopped, replaced by a slow, soft whisper.
Help me.
Chills ran down my spine. I couldn't move, frozen with fear. Then I heard footsteps, soft but unmistakable. I stared, paralyzed, as the handle jiggled. The door didn't open, but I could feel Something on the other side, waiting. The following morning, I decided to leave. But as I was packing, I noticed something odd on the nightstand. A photograph of a man staring directly at the camera, his eyes wide with fear. I didn't recognize him, but I felt as if he were watching me, pleading silently for something I didn't understand. As I left, the receptionist looked at me with a strange expression. I couldn't help but ask, "Has anyone seen strange things in room 213? She hesitated, glancing around as if to make sure no one was listening.
That room's supposed to be locked up.
She said in a whisper.
A man died in there. Said he was trying to escape. They found him scratching at the walls trying to get out.
I didn't ask for any more details, but as I walked away, I felt as if those eyes in the photograph were still watching me, as if that man was still trying to escape his prison, reaching out to anyone who could hear him. And that's it for tonight's Tales of Horror. Just remember, if you start hearing strange noises from the walls, it might not be just your imagination. So sleep well, my friends. But remember, I'll be listening. This is Mr. Scary Guy saying, good night, sleep tight, if you dare. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe by clicking the icon above. We've also got a playlist full of scary stories on your left side, and a suggested video you'll love on the right. Choose one and keep the scares going.